Everybody got the pencils in hand, ready to go here? Okay. Let me see. About 20 seconds away from punching in here live. Okay, welcome everybody. Sorry for the little bit of confusion there. I may have accidentally scheduled it for 5 o'clock when I was setting up all of this tech here, but it is in fact happening right now. And I am here live with you right now. It looks like my camera's sort of tilted down a little bit on its own. But I'm here, whether the top of my head is not, we are live. My name is Michael Markowsky. I'm here in my studio, and I'm happy to invite you in here. And let's bring a little flower, some natural beauty to this space. It's a beautiful sunny Thursday afternoon, and we are more than halfway through this introductory drawing class. And last class, I think we did some really exciting stuff, really learning how to use the basic shapes we learned in the first few classes to combine them together to create more complex forms such as tigers, cats, elephants, giraffes, etc. So we're going to continue doing that, and then the little kind of theme on top of that for today's lesson is going to be all about how to develop and find your own style as an artist. Because, gosh, I mean, this is a big topic, so I'm just going to kind of gently introduce it. And some of you may be thinking, I just started drawing. I'm not even there yet to come up with a style. That's a whole other thing. But I think it's worth thinking about even at this early stage, because we often have an idea of the kind of art that we like, and therefore that's the kind of art we want to make. And sometimes what we like, the kind of art we like, is maybe not the kind of art, or more specific drawing style, that comes most easy to us, most comfortable, and brings us the most kind of pleasure. Sometimes we end up, our style could be different than what we want it to be, and I think a lot of people spend a lot of unnecessary time resisting that. And there could be some argument to say that, you know, it's worth kind of pushing past boundaries and giving yourself challenges and trying to, work on things. And I'm totally a big believer in that. But I also just want to kind of put in the back of your mind that our expectations for what we want to be able to do might be different than what we're capable of doing, or we might be really capable of doing it, but it turns out this is not really the kind of thing that we want to do. And I always think about, there's a lot of great artists out there, and a lot of people out there who make art that I really don't like, and I'm really grateful that they're out there doing that, because it's just one less thing that I have to do. And then there's a lot of artists out there whose art I just love, but I've tried kind of working in their similar style, and I just like, you know what, this is not for me. Kudos to them, but it's not me. Like, so a great example would be, Leonardo Da Vinci, the artist who created the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, and we talked about the Last Supper a few weeks ago. And great artist, acknowledged as one of the greatest artists of all time, and yet, when I was younger, I used to really look at the Renaissance artists and kind of want to be one of them. And I kind of taught myself a lot about how to draw looking at their artwork. But as I kind of got older, I just was like, you know what, I don't want to make this kind of art. I don't really, this style, when I try to do it, feels really forced. So over time, I developed my own style. And it takes some time to do it, but I think if you're starting now and you're starting to think about it, it can kind of maybe help leapfrog you a little bit over some of that internal struggle that I went through as an artist. Okay, so having gotten that initial preamble out of the way, I'm going to create a little, what is this? Sorry. Oops. It's always a bit of a technology hurdle getting all of this going. And where's one that I want to... Oh, I know what I'm going to do. Where was it? Okay, here. So I'm going to bring up an image that we're going to use to sketch from, and then we're going to do a little bit of a warm-up drawing just to kind of get the creative juices a flowing. Okay, so I'm thinking of kind of in the future what I'm going to do is kind of start a class kind of in this way and kind of just talk really briefly, like a minute or less, just about an artist that I found inspiring. And this is Keith Haring that you see up on the screen right now. Keith Haring was a New York-based artist, began as a graffiti artist, and you may have seen some of these images that he's standing in front of. And he became super famous, and you've probably seen buttons and t-shirts stuff that he designed around still to this day, even though he died in the late 80s, early 90s. And this was an artist that when I was younger, I would not have been interested in at all. I mean, he kind of cartoony style, which we identify as for children, but I just wasn't, I was into the more classical kind of art. And it took some time for me to kind of come around to see to appreciate this kind of art. First of all, he was doing these as graffiti, and he would be drawing these in the subway until eventually he was embraced by the galleries, and he started exhibiting these and selling them for quite a lot of money. So what we're going to do is we're going to use his art as an inspiration for our own drawings. So you've got your sketchbook out here, and okay, so that was just a little sneak peek there of what we're gonna do shortly. So you've got your sketchbook, here's mine, the full thing, almost edge to edge here, and we're just gonna do a couple quick little warm-up drawings. And what we're going to do is you can pick whatever one or as many of them there as you want to draw. I'm going to, let's say, just start with the red one in the top left corner. And I am just to kind of trace around the outside here. So this, his style, again, he was drawing these on, in New York they used to have, well, they still have posters that are hung up like official advertisements, and when they're this kind of black, almost like a chalkboard-like surface. So he would go around and draw with chalk on those those kind of blank spaces where the posters used to be. So he wasn't going around, although I think he probably did some with spray paint, but for the most part he was just drawing with chalk. So it was one way for him to avoid having these huge fines for defacing public property. It could just be, you know, you could just throw a bucket of water on it and it would disappear, or they would eventually be covered up anyway. So the reason why I'm kind of showing this, his art, is because there's a certain kind of playful quality to the art. I was looking at, you know, images of dogs, because we're going to draw some dogs today. Last week was our big cat day. Today's our dog day, so that we we're not showing any prejudice to any particular domesticated animal. And so I'm just going to keep on drawing here. I'm going to draw 4 of them. And you can see mine aren't perfect. And I'm doing now the blue one in the bottom corner. And I think, as I said, like, he would be able to draw something like this. And there's videos on YouTube and elsewhere showing him doing these exact same drawings all over the place and doing them really quickly. And he did more than just this kind of talking dog figure. But I wanted to show you it because you can see this is a super stylized version of a dog. In fact, it's not even really behaving like a dog at all. It's behaving more like a person, right? Another creature, character I was thinking about drawing was maybe Snoopy, right? Another super famous dog character that you could use as inspiration. And of course there's Goofy, and what are some other famous dog characters out there? Okay, so that's a nice little quick warm-up. Obviously you could get some color out and you could start coloring your picture, and you could easily take this design and draw it on a t-shirt. You know, it wouldn't, obviously you could see how long it took, you know, so it wouldn't be too hard to reproduce something like this, and you know, an artwork inspired by Keith Haring. Okay, so what should we, where should we go? I'm gonna flip to another page in my sketchbook here, and then I'm going to bring up another series of artworks here. How far did we get last class? Okay, actually, so this is great. We're going to be able to do a lot of stuff today. I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you an image this is in a handout that I used to give in just a second. I know it's not on the screen just yet. So I'm about to put on the screen a handout showing some just an image from a how to draw book. I love looking through those even to this day, because I always find it really interesting to see how different artists teach drawing. Let's see, is that going to show up? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to show this here. This is from another artist's how to draw book, and showing some different abstractions of a dog. And I thought, well, doing this here is an opportunity for me to create some brand new content of my own, using this kind of approach as inspiration. So if you're interested, you can kind of pause and you can look at this, or you can go to the one that I did, which is in the thumbnail to this video. So what we're looking at here are some puppy dogs. Actually, you know what, I should show you. This is all inspired by my I'll just put this kind of on this. This is Zappa. This is my wife's mom's dog. My wife's mom's dog. I don't know why that sounded funny for a second. And this was when this dog was very small and it grew up very quickly and became quite the energetic dog. So I found this photograph and I thought, why don't we, instead of just drawing some generic dog that I found on the web, let's try actually drawing a dog that is familiar to me, and then I can also use it as a teaching tool. So let's kind of, I guess it won't let me make it any smaller. So what I want you to do is, I'm gonna make another one of these. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to try drawing. Actually, what I want, I'm going to move this down here. This is my sketchbook again. Let's take your sketchbook and let's draw a line right down the middle of the page. And look at that. I could maybe use a little bit more warm-up. That's one wobbly line. Okay, and then we'll divide it in half. And I wonder if this will work this way. What I want to do, and I'll set a timer on one of the phones that I have around here. I got a bunch of extra old phones. I'm going to set a timer, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw at least 4. If you're out or if you have extra time, you can do this on some more pages. I'm going to set a timer for, let's see, 8 minutes here. So we're going to, and what I want you to do is I want you to try to reproduce, maybe I'm going to move this down here. Actually, I'm just going to move this right out of the way because we're just going to work from the sketches that I did here. So your challenge is to pick 4 of the things that you see on the right side of your screen and to draw them into your sketchbook. And I'm just going to, I'll show you maybe how I would begin this process. Maybe, actually for this, I'm going to bring this dog back into view here, the original photo. So the first thing I would do is trying to find those simple shapes. So I'm going to draw an oval. All right. Maybe you can see there's kind of an oval shape to the dog's face, right? And then I'm just going to really quickly identify where the eyes are on this oval with just a couple of little dots. And then I'm also going to identify where this nose is. All right. So that kind of helps kind of already, you know, it looks kind of silly, and this could be, you know, you're a cartoon right here already. The next thing is we have these ears here, right? And I'm just going to kind of make kind of some big triangles. Just to, again, I'm helping to get myself into the ballpark of where things should be. Now, to get this next is maybe more difficult. And what I would do, and I'm drawing kind of light, maybe I'm going to draw a little bit darker. All right, so now I'm going to, you know, look for this. There's a drop shape in this dog's face, right? On the nose, anyway, from this point of view. All right, so that kind of helps me there. Right, and then if I could also kind of think there's these, it kind of peels off on either side like that. That's the way that I see kind of these eyebrows, right? Okay. So I can make these eyes maybe a little bit bigger. And I can, again, I'm moving and adjusting things around here a little bit. Let's say I want to make the nose even bigger. So I think this is a good place to be here, right? Underneath the nose we have kind of, I don't know I don't know enough about dog's anatomy to know anything about that look, but now have kind of the mouth here, I guess you'd say. And then, so actually, you know what? This first one here, I'm just going to develop like I did in the top left corner of your screen, kind of right up here. So I'll just kind of show you how I kind of got to that point. So then I'm going to go over these ears. You know, this kind of big floppy ear. And you can see it actually kind of comes a little bit over the face a bit. And then this one comes down, and maybe not quite so much. So, you know, I should probably use my colored pencils for a little bit here. Although I wasn't intending to, but I think maybe it might be helpful for you to see what is my original underdrawing lines versus the lines that I intend to kind of keep. So once I've kind of got this in place, I can already say, okay, are the ears too big? Are the eyes in the wrong place? If not, I've got an eraser, I can make changes. So right here, because let's say you're somebody who's also drawn kind of a little bit too dark, I'm just going to kind of erase this little line in between there for the shape that helped me get to this point. And then I'm just going to kind of quickly start adding a little bit of shading into this drawing. And like we've talked about in the past, I'm going to try to use my lines here to kind of reinforce the shape of this dog's face. All right, so I'm kind of coming around here. I stopped the timer if you're worried about that. Figure we'll start with a little bit of a lesson, and then we'll kind of let you have a little bit more freedom. If you've just gone off and you're doing your thing and you're rocking out, then that is awesome. And again, so you see how all my pencil lines are kind of describing the shape of this dog, right? And then it's kind of hard to see in the, maybe I'll just enlarging the eyes a bit. You know, often when we're drawing eyes, we like to put a little reflection in the eye. And so just by putting a little bit of a white dot in there, I guess maybe it's a little hard to see, but I just put a little bit of left a little bit of this black circle for the eyes with just a little bit of white, and that tells us there's a highlight in there. The light is hitting a kind of a glassy surface. Okay. And then I could spend more time kind of going in and kind of shading this here. I'm not going to spend all of that time in here, but I think this gives you an idea of how we could kind of get a relatively basic drawing of this dog on the page. All right. So this is kind of one way of drawing this dog. I'm going to kind of leave that drawing there, and then I am going to I'm going to drop this. Well, let's keep it at 8 minutes here, and maybe even before we get to the 8 minutes, just thinking out loud here. Why don't we try drawing that basic shape of this dog in these empty squares right now. Now, again, I'm going to look for these eyes and this nose, right? And this time, I'm going to just come right up and kind of draw this shape on here of this dog like that. So one of the things I find is the more I draw something, the easier it gets. Because I kind of figure out like the key to the drawing. It's like a, you know, like to open a lock kind of thing. Once you do it a few times, you're like, oh, okay, it's kind of, it's like learning to write a word or, you know, a letter or something. You know, you can, like, oh, I know how to reproduce that. I can do that. I did it once. I can do it again. So I'm just going to draw these out here. You can see each time I do it, they change. Maybe the size gets a little bit bigger or smaller. Okay. So I've got these 3 on the page. Now what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to, I'm going to move the dog off of the screen, the original photo. And what I want you to do now is, with this 8 minutes on the clock, I want you to find another 3 there that you like, that you want to use as inspiration for your drawing. So maybe I'm going to just to start the timer. If you're kind of a little bit more advanced, go right ahead. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this one right next to it's the top middle. And why I did that one is this one's got like, I'm actually going to make these eyes even bigger. Because this is what we often do, you know, if we're cartooning, right? Cartoon characters often have these gigantic eyes. So I'm going to do one here. You can see how once I've got the basics down, I can then kind of start playing with it, right? So now I've got this, oops, I'll get my big head out of the way. All right, and I don't want you to be too stressed out about the time, but I think it's helpful to have a timer to kind of keep you, you know, some awareness of time, because often time just sort of slips away. And I want you to kind of encourage you to move kind of quickly. So let's say, you know, right here, do I want to make this forehead bigger or smaller or keep it the same size? How about, I'm going to make it smaller. You can do whatever you want to do. Done this once. Maybe I got a small top of the head. All right, we'll just erase that a bit. And then let's have some huge ears. Right? So again, and I can, if I want, I can start feeding this in. So this kind of drawing with these gigantic ears, this is a particular, well, ears, but particularly eyes, is a common feature of like anime, Japanese manga, comic books, film, animation. Right, there's just a feature of their art over the past about 50 years or so, and it's super popular. When I teach at an art college here in Vancouver, and a lot of my younger students come in wanting to draw kind of anime style. So here's same kind of dog, just by enlarging and changing the features, it looks very different all of a sudden, right? Oh, and I forgot little whiskers on here. So you can decide, you don't even have to put whiskers on your dog, right? You could put, you know, the first one looked fine without them. This one, maybe I'm going to put little tiny whiskers instead of big ones, right? It's up to you. Now it kind of maybe looks like a different dog, like a Chihuahua or something. And then if you can see how I did another one where I reduced the size of the eyes. So I'm here at, I got just under 5 minutes here for 2 more. It gives me 2.5 minutes for each one. I'm going to do another one that's kind of more of a scribble style. So actually, I'm just going to, let's scribble this in. And it kind of is going to look like a bit of a poodle. Alright, so I lose a little bit of the shape of the dog in here. That's okay. If I accidentally, just like I kind of went a little bit too dark there, that's okay too. And as you go, like, there's no rules for this. No one's sitting there looking over your head like a judge at the Olympics, making sure that you're, you've gone through all the gates on the downhill ski run, right? You can kind of make it up as you go, right? If it's all of a sudden, hey, this is actually turned out pretty, I want to start refining it and go over top of all the scribbles, I could do that too, right? Like, what would a scribbly, these are scribbly whiskers. And then, what's another one that I could do? I could do another one. I was trying to do one that was like really geometric. So I'm going to try doing one that has no curved lines. And again, you could see how I sometimes ignore the underdrawing sketch. Let's turn this into squares for eyes. Square, rectangular nose. And so, one of the things one of the tasks I give my students at Emily is I ask them to what we'll do is we'll draw the same thing over and over again, and we start going faster and faster and faster. So what happens when you're drawing something over and over and over again, even if you had this, like starting from the same place, you're going to get a little bit bored, right? Kind of making some decisions to kind of switch things up and change things up. The same thing if you go for a jog every day. Maybe there's a few of you who always run the exact same route, but some of you, like for me, kind of switching it up. I'm like, you know what? I've been running this direction for a long time, and this same road. I'm going to go the exact opposite way. So here's another one. I'm just going to, I got a minute left on my clock, so maybe I'm going to, I'm just going to draw one right in the middle of my page here. So maybe you're already done. If you're already, go to another page or draw another in like the margins, make them really small. So let's say I'm going to try to do one that is using the fewest lines possible. What do I need to do to this drawing to communicate dog? I don't know if I'm doing anything successfully right here, but okay, so that was 5 minutes of drawing. Let me see. So here, this is a bit of a part of our warm-up, but you know, this kind of thing is really, really useful as an exercise. Like, I mean, I was just drawing. I'll just show you maybe this. These are some images that I was drawing earlier today to kind of come up with the thumbnail for this image. And some of them aren't even on the thumbnail, just because I was fooling around. And this starts to become really exciting, where I start thinking, like, what are all the different ways I could take this? Like, here's some really quick drawings. I find it's actually easier to do this kind of thing after you've done some of the more complicated ones, because you kind of you figure out the system, where everything should go, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I can actually make it more simple. You know, some with bigger eyes and smaller eyes, bigger nose with smaller eyes. You know, some way more cartoony versions using just up and down lines, so vertical lines, or ones where the lines are horizontal. I was trying to do some kind of a Picasso-y kind of thing, you know, the eyes on the same side. And while I did that, I was like, oh, look how this kind of creates this heart shape. And then I went down here and I started like, well, I could do this heart, and I could do a heart for the eyes, and then, whoa, I could do the heart for the, you know, this eye ridge area, and then the ears, and so, you know, maybe I could create a whole dog just out of heart shapes, right? Here's some weird robot thing again. So these are just some possibilities to showing you, you know, this took me maybe half hour to kind of throw a whole bunch of these onto the page. And I actually think the faster you're doing this stuff, the better. Like, I'll go back to this if some people are still wanting to draw that. You know, if you're like, I literally, when I'm also doing this in class with students, I have a timer and I say, like, we got to move on, like, because I don't want you obsessing over things. I want you to be moving forward. Like, the ideation process, when you're coming up with ideas, should be just kind of spitballing ideas, brainstorming, right? So as to try to come up with different possible outcomes. Okay, so again, you could continue doing more and more versions of this. The ones I have up there, that's a really small sampling of different possible styles that I could approach my drawing in. You know, some are more abstracted versus some are more realistic, as you might say, or representational, or represents maybe more accurately how we imagine or how we see that original dog. But it's, you know, it's wide open. And I guess I would say is that you might draw something right now and you could be horrified with the results there. But I guarantee you that at the very, very, very least, one of them turned out in a really interesting way that you may not even be able to fully appreciate right now. You're thinking like, this is just totally failed on this project. Well, I bet you one of them isn't, and I bet you more than one, but just for the sake of argument, is that I bet you one of them is really, really, like, has incredible potential to become something new. And it just, you're looking at it thinking it's bad, is just because it's just so new that you don't it kind of feels a little bit anxiety inducing. Okay, so we're doing good on time. So what I want to do is we're going to go to where is it? Okay, so this is a slightly different dog. Not a gold Labrador that we were drawing before. This little adorable Dachshund. How do you say? Is it Dachshund? Dachshund? Okay, so we're going to try drawing a dog like this. And I'm going to need a different view here. So, is this gonna, how am I gonna make this fit? Okay, let's see. So, like we were doing last class, we're gonna try, sorry, I gotta move this over here a little bit more. So yeah, we could fit the whole sketchbook on this page. Okay. Okay. So I want to try drawing this dog on my sketchbook. And again, I'm going to set a 4-minute timer because I don't want to sit here and focus forever on making this perfect. I want to try to find the shapes in this drawing. So to begin with, if I see this is the size of my sketchbook, I have to figure out, I want to make it all fit in there. I don't want the dog's nose running off the side of the paper, and I don't want the tail running off the side of the paper. So what I'm going to do is start out by trying to find this kind of shape of the body. Right? So I put this kind of little sausage shape in here. Now what I often do is I use, let's say I'll use a ruler, even though I don't usually use a ruler, but just so you can kind of see. What I'll do is, let's imagine I was to draw a straight line from the back of this dog. I'm going to use a colored pencils, actually, so we don't get too confusing. So let's say I was going to draw a line here across. Now, I'm going to use a different color here. So if I was to draw this shape of the dog like this, I would expect, you know, going across, the chin is not going to be there. The chin of the dog is going to be higher. So let's say I draw this, the head of the dog up here. The chin would be here, not down here, right? Because of that. So I'm drawing these basic shapes. And then same thing here. Let's say I draw another line across here. I'm not saying you have to do that, but if I did that, and then let's say I'm drawing this front leg, and then I've got another front leg, and here. So if I draw this line across, does that kind of match up with the drawing? Well, it kind of looks like, or the photograph, it kind of looks like this back leg kind of matches up with this front leg, and a little bit lower. And this leg, you know, where is it? Right, so if let's say I draw this line across, and then I look at the image. Whoa, when I look at the image, it looks almost like this should be down here, right? But it's not. So that means that this will probably have to come up, and this leg is a little much higher. All right, so just kind of laying things out onto the page to see if, and I'm just going to kind of quickly, I got 30 seconds left on my drawing. I want to see if everything kind of fits. And this foot is down a little bit lower. Okay. So there we go. That was 5 minutes. What I want when we're doing any of these types of drawings is for you to trying to get everything on the page within 5 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean the details. You see, I'm missing, let's say, the nails and all the detail, I'm missing a ton of detail. But what I do have is the basic shape of this dog on here. And now, what I would do is then try to make some adjustments. So let's say, I'm going to get it just a totally different color, this green. So now I can kind of look at it, and again, thinking, where does, I'll move this up so it's a little, almost like directly opposite the dog here. So I'm looking at it and think, okay, how close, I mean, if I'm happy with the dog, I'm happy with it. I can just move forward and start drawing. But I'm looking at it and I think, well, I feel like there's this space in between these two legs is should be larger, right? So maybe that means moving this leg over. This leg over. All right, so that's gonna open up this. Maybe I'll move this leg back a bit. All right. So it's kind of like this, a little bit of, at first, this kind of checking to make sure everything kind of fits. And again, I can do the same thing. I can, let's say maybe this head needs to move forward. So let's say I move that. These coils might be a little bit distracting. Okay, so see how everything just kind of moved a little bit? Now I know some like, oh man, this is so confusing. You know, like, it's really, I'm really bummed out, and now it's like really frustrating. Well, what I would suggest doing is what I'm about to do is to start this drawing over, because I've kind of figured out some of the placement of this dog, and now I'm going to start it all over from scratch. Okay, so I know that might seem frustrating, but let's, if you want, you can certainly continue your drawing, but I'm going to start another 5-minute timer here. And we'll see how I do here. So I'm going to start out with this torso. And, you know, if you want, you can kind of refer back to it. Kind of taking some of the lessons that I just learned. So I'm thinking about this space now, because that was a problem with my prior drawing. And I'm like, well, that leg looks like it's pretty long, so it probably means that this torso come down a bit. Maybe this leg isn't quite so long after all. And this leg could be back here. Okay. So I'm doing pretty good with time. And then let's draw this head in here. Okay. Our daughter upstairs is her personality is really coming in. It's I love it. I love it. She's quite a character already. Okay, so look, the first drawing took me 5 minutes to do. Second drawing took me 2 minutes to do. Now maybe it's going to take you a little bit longer. I totally, you know, if this is, you're just beginning, it's not expecting you to be like racing and showing that kind of level of improvement. But if you draw something over again, you're going to start kind of solving the problems, and it's going to make your life a little bit easier each and every time you go at it again. Okay, so let's say we're going to work on this drawing, and I'm going to set, let's see how much more I can get done in 10 minutes. So I got a 10-minute timer. I'm going to see if I can get this drawing of a dog to a reasonable level of finish here within the next little bit of time. So I'm selecting some pencils from my colored pencils, and I like to have, like, I'm just going to move this over, have a little range of pencils, and I also kind of like selecting the colors, not all the time, but I do like figuring out a little bit of this before I start drawing. It just kind of gives me some options. So you can see there's a lot of blue colors in here. Oh, wondering what on earth that was. Rather than browns and, I mean, there are some, I'll put a few of them in there. One of the things often when I teach at like young kids is, one of the rules I'll say is, if we're going to color something with pencils or paint, is you cannot use the original colors. So if somebody's hair was blonde in a picture, you can use any color but kind of a yellow, or, you know, you have to use your imagination to come up with something different. And often it really frees people up from like the tyranny of having to replicate reality as they see it. All right, so this, I'm going to kind of go over some of my lines here. And now as I'm going, I'm kind of being a little bit more mindful of where things are, and trying to kind of a little bit capture more of the details. And the image I'm looking at right now is about the size of an image on a phone, so I apologize if I'm anyone who's owns this breed of dog and are noticing some clear anatomical inconsistencies. I'm struggling a little bit to see the full detail. And this, remember we talked last class about just putting one line in front of the other to make this leg appear to be in front, right? Same sort of thing, right? This leg coming over in front of the other one immediately pushes that leg back. And so I got just under 7 minutes left on my clock here. Let's see how quickly I can resolve this picture here. If you're following along, or even if you finish early, it'd be really cool to see if anybody, some of the drawings that you may have made earlier on, even in today's episode or from last week's episode, you could upload those to Facebook or Instagram and send me a message, tag me in them, and then I'll see if I'll pull them up and we'll talk about them when class is over here in probably about 10 minutes. We'll be all finished. Actually, one of the things, before I start doing too much shading, I'll also give you a little suggestion as to how I would go about this. is I'm just going to kind of quickly outline some of the pattern on this dog here that I can, a little tricky to see, but this just, again, is taking another second to kind of be a little observant of things. So this is the kind of the black of this dog. The other thing too, but if I'm using one color and I'm layering another color, oops, well, I just got rid of that little area. Oh well. Those colors are going to start to kind of mix on my page, so I get this kind of effect of like I'm kind of creating a purple like look. I got 5 minutes left. So again, I'm kind of shading with the side of my pencil to help. That really speeds things up when I'm drawing here. If I'm trying to just use the tip of my pencil, it would take me forever to get all of this colored in. The other thing, using these two, like the red and the blue, is that to get a brown, we would mix red and blue and a little bit of yellow. So I'm kind of treating these colored pencils a bit like I'm mixing paint. So that when I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in here in a second, and things we're going to kind of have, I guess I didn't pick any yellow, huh? Have a bit more of a brownish kind of quality. So that they not only have some kind of a bit of a brown quality, but it's going to have some yellow and red, and you're just going to give a little bit added complexity to my image. Okay, I got 3 minutes left on the clock here. What else do I put? Let's put this kind of using kind of a green as a shadow. Why not, eh? Why not? Two minutes left here on my clock. So maybe I will take a little bit of brown. And I've talked a little bit about using colored pencils. The nicer my colored pencil, the easier it is for me to do what I'm doing right now, of layering color over top of color. The cheaper the pencils, the less they're going to kind of, the less nicely they play together. And they kind of, you might find some of the previous layers are kind of resisting pencil marks over top of them. to really help push a shape back is we really want to get this to be darker. That's also going to create a little more volume. The other thing, once I get after I'm going for a while, I just kind of stop even looking at the original image. You know, if this was really important, I get anatomy perfect. Well, then referring to the original would be important. But okay, so that's. This took us 15 minutes from very beginning to here. Feel pretty good about that. Okay. So, and then even though it's not in the original, I'm just going to put give it a little shadow on here. I just always want to have something that helps kind of ground this, whatever shape it is that you're drawing. Okay. So, you know, I mean, I'm not fully satisfied with this drawing, as you may not be fully satisfied with yours. But again, for 15 minutes worth of work to kind of have something on the page that did not exist there is really, really rewarding. Let me come back out to... Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is just... is kind of end this particular kind of drawing exercise here. Again, your drawing will look different than mine, unquestionably. Like, if you were able to reproduce your drawing exactly like mine, that would be a little bit odd, right? Especially if you were doing this live with me without pausing. And I don't really know... Personally, I'm not really interested in art that that sort of reproduces reality in a photographic way. I just feel like if I could, like, why would I want to make a drawing that looks like a photograph? I know that a lot of people like that, and that, you know, I often hear, you know, because I've done drawings like that, and those are the ones that usually sell the most. And but personally, what I'm more interested in is looking at art where I see something really unique, like the art tells me something, shows me a dog in a different way than I've ever seen a dog before. You know, that almost, you know, let's say, for instance, I was looking at, you know, even that Keith Haring drawings from earlier, right? Like, these don't really look like a dog at all, except maybe the ears, perhaps, right? So it's kind of changing this creature and turning it into something new that I haven't seen before. And that's why I go to art, and what I like about art is it tells me something that I don't already know and shows me a different way of looking at the world around me. So that's often why people, you know, if they do a drawing and it looks a little bit different, that it causes anxiety, because it's literally showing you something that you haven't seen before, and it's different than your expectation of it. So I when I'm going around and I'm teaching in a classroom and I see all the different drawings people have done from the same image, we start at the same place and we all go to different places, that gets me really excited because I think, look at all of the people's personalities bubbling up through their drawings and showing me different views on this same kind of starting place. So I would encourage you to, if you're looking at your drawing and you're not totally happy with it, is to, first of all, don't throw it out, don't cross it out, don't tear it up and you know, recycle it or burn it or whatever. Let it sit in your sketchbook, because you will find, especially if you continue drawing and you come back every couple days with me, or you're watching somebody else, is that they're kind of like little marks on the wall when you're growing up, right? And you can go back and like, wow, it's hard to even imagine that I was that tall at one point. So when you have your drawings, you can kind of look at like, oh, wow, that's actually really cool. In fact, when I look at my old sketchbooks, often, sometimes I think like, wow, that's really good. I don't even remember drawing. I don't even know if I could do that anymore. So, but there's other times I look at drawings in my sketchbook and think like, wow, I remember drawing that, and I remember being really close to throwing this out. Like I was so disgusted with this one drawing, I wanted to throw the whole sketchbook out. And now I look at it and think, wow, this is kind of like the seed that planted where I am now. Like this drawing is kind of just the beginnings of a whole new way of kind of thinking and drawing. So I suggest to you that it's possible what you've just created is something that is the beginning for a new direction for you. And you could draw this same drawing over and over and over again, and if you do that, you're going to get bored of drawing it the same way, and you're going to start making some changes. You're going to start kind of maybe enlarging the head a little bit, maybe, you know, putting a monocle on the eye and a tuxedo, or who knows, like a skateboard. Like you just start coming up with things, just because that's just the human mind is a little bit inherently restless a bit, right? Okay, so enough of me just babbling on. What I want to do, I haven't looked at any of the comments here, so actually, I'm just going to suggest for next class, since we're just kind of winding down now, is to kind of do what we've just done, and to here we are. So look for images of artists that you like, at the library or online, maybe in books you already have. And I would suggest trying to find drawings as opposed to paintings, because making a drawing based on a painting, I do that all the time, but it might be a little bit more difficult for somebody who's just beginning. So trying to, even if you go to Google Images, like Google your favorite fish or your favorite, I don't know, monkey or whatever it is, right? And then in Google search, you can also find a place where it shows you drawings of, or line drawings in the settings. In fact, maybe I'll just show you how I would do that. So describing how this works. How can I find where to go? Let's just create a new one here. Okay, so what I would do, I'm going to move. So if I was to, let's say I'm in Google, what would be something I could search for? Let's say eagle. All right, so I got eagle, images. And then one of the things that you can do is you can go to tools, right? And if you want to find like a really high resolution version of an eagle, so these are going to be nice and big and have lots of detail, right? Because now I've selected large over any size, but just for our purpose, I'll go back to any size. And then I can go to type, and then look here, I have clip art line drawing. So this is going to show me a whole bunch of different line drawings from on the web, and you could find stuff, right? Like maybe you're more attracted to this type of a drawing of an eagle, right? And then there's some people who are like, yeah, I don't know about that, or I'd like to try doing it, but I don't know if I can do it. Maybe I'm going to try drawing something like this, kind of more of a more graphic, as we would say, you know, so that it's less rendering and shading, hatching, and all that kind of stuff, and just like pure black and white, high contrast, right? You know, it starts to look like a logo for a sports team or something, right? Or you could do something even like far more abstracted. Like this looks like something on the front of a Thunderbird car or something, right? So this gives you already, like, you could try drawing something like this. So whatever it is, whether you look online at images or you find something in a book, like let's say you might want to, let's say I could type in famous drawing. I often do this all the time, but I think like, has some artist done, and I'm just going to any type, has somebody done like a really well-known, what is the most famous eagle? There's got to be something in here. Oh, eagle paintings by famous artists. That looks like, what is that, a Leonardo or something? Oh my goodness. All this, so sometimes you got to do a little bit of searching here. Here, look, there's a drawing of an eagle by Da Vinci. So you could try looking for art by certain artists you like, and then see if you could find an image. So let's see. I don't know what this is here. This eagle. Wow, that is cool. Leonardo, like, this guy lived 550 or so years ago. And like, look at this beautiful tree and this incredible eagle. So, but this would be a way, you know, you could just Google whatever artists that you may not even know too many artists or their names. You could just, like I typed in, like, famous drawing of a shoe by so-and-so, or just famous drawing of shoe, or famous shoe drawing. An artist that I think is amazing, you know, or like, I would just type in, let's say, Van Gogh drawing. Right, and then we have all of these beautiful drawings that Van Gogh is Van Gogh, I think is technically, as actually said. Let's see. Like, these are just gorgeous drawings. And here Van Gogh is using, I think this is probably like a combination of a pen dipped in ink and a brush dipped in ink. So these little tiny dots in all these lines, probably like a calligraphy pen. And then as he goes, probably drew most of this and then went back over it with a pen or a brush to kind of darken some of these areas. And then as you can see, he didn't leave the background blank either. He's drawn really quickly. You know, it probably took him maybe 2 minutes to fill in this whole background, but it just changes this drawing very quickly. He's definitely somebody who is underappreciated as a drawer, as a draftsperson. We all know his paintings very well, but his drawings, in some ways, I think, are arguably superior to his paintings. So he would be he's a person I really appreciate. He would be somebody, a great artist to kind of look at, to study, just because of the vocabulary of lines that he uses. Okay, so just to bring this graphic back, so finding some images of artists that you like, and then try to draw copies of them in your sketchbook. And don't worry about making totally accurate and perfect and pretty and ready to sell and all that kind of stuff. Just play around, just experiment with them, because you're trying to pick out their style, their individual way of drawing. And if we had asked a whole bunch of people to draw this, and there's a whole bunch of you who did probably this exact same drawing of the dog I did, I'd be so interested to see what you did with your drawing, because we all have different, our bodies are different, and we're going to color differently and make lines and start and end in different places, which are all going to create unique images, which is what I'm always after when it comes to drawing. That's what I want to see, is something new and different rather than the same old, same old. And then lastly, if you want to go even further, is try making a new drawing in the style of an artist you like. So you could try drawing the drawing of the dog that we just did, how Van Gogh would have done it, right? Like, how would Van Gogh have, using his style, how would he have created the drawing that we were looking at, right? That's a big challenge. That's one of the exercises I get my students to do, my drawing students to do at university, but it still would be kind of an interesting little exercise for you, especially if you're a little bit more advanced and you want, an extra challenge to do. But I think by exploring other people's styles, it helps you define what your own style is. Like, another example is, I get students to go through the art book, that big book that has one page dedicated to about like 200 or 300 different artists, and it's in alphabetical order, and just get them to go through the book and just on another piece of paper circle or write down the names of artists that they like, and then artists that they don't like, and artists that are kind of ambivalent to. So kind of 3 columns. And then you start kind of, as you do that, certain things start to kind of bubble up. You're like, yeah, you know what? All this abstract painting in there, I'm not so into it. Or in the other, there's people who look at that and go like, wow, I love all those, but all these pictures of, people that look like people, quote unquote, less interested, but I love all this abstract painting. And by doing that, you start kind of narrowing down what your own interests are. Anyway, okay, so let me see. I'm just going to go now through the comments here. If you're leaving us for today and you've had your fill of drawing and my chatter, please, if you've enjoyed it and you're thinking about coming back, the best way to do so is to like this video and then subscribe to the video, hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when the next class, which is next Tuesday, when that class, and it's always at 4 o'clock. I don't know how I messed that up and made it 5 o'clock today, so hopefully we haven't missed too many people, but they can always tune in at any other time. And if you want to share this video or any other videos on your Facebook feed and let other people know, that is also super appreciated. And if you really want to support this free education and make it accessible for even more people to afford it, you can leave a small donation via PayPal below. So looking forward to 8 of 10. The middle one looks like it's going a different direction. I love my dog drawing. Yeah, people are surprised that it turned out pretty well. That's great. That makes me so excited. You can see that if I had just said draw that photograph of the dog and turned you loose, there would be I would say the vast majority of people, 90% of people, would probably end up giving up within like 2 or 3 minutes, because they would encounter some major problem with their drawing, and then the ear is weird because they're probably starting right up in the top left corner, because that's kind of how we read, is in the West anyway, kind of left to right, and then they get frustrated and give up. If you're starting from the simple shapes, and you kind of just build it up like the foundation to a house. Slowly you start putting up the walls before you hang any pictures, right? It just starts I just think you're starting with a more solid foundation. Wendy says she sent a couple of drawings in the comment part of this lesson. I wonder if that's in the YouTube video itself. I didn't know that was even possible, so let me see if I can find that. Weird echo once this starts here. A second. I'm streaming my own video. Okay. I don't see Wendy, your drawing. Where could that be? Is that on Facebook perhaps? Oh, and Sam sent a few. So if you're sending, just tell me what location where your artwork is so that I can find it. I know some people have sent drawings in the past, but even then, you know, I can't remember which venue it made its way to me here. So I don't see it here. I don't see it on Instagram. Oh, I have here on Facebook a couple of things in my inbox. Okay, so I think this takes a little bit of extra time because I'm using the internet to broadcast this to you, so dragging things off the web while something's going up to the web is kind of taking a little bit extra time. So why is that not finally? Oh, cool. Okay, so let me pull these up. Okay. So I'm looking at the ones that Sam sent, and I don't know where the other ones are though. Oh, Wendy says she put them in Facebook. On the comments section, I don't really know. Oh, here. Okay. I don't know where that was. Oh, cool. Okay. So we're almost there. Sorry for the delay that come across. And oh, wow. These are great. You guys are fantastic. Okay, so let me just move all of these different windows out of the way. And I'm going to bring up the images that you guys just sent. Okay, so here we go. So this first one, this is from Sam, and I imagine it looks like it's for some reason, I'm just going to rotate it this way. Cool. This is great, Sam. I love the way that you've colored this drawing. I like the layering of the colors on this beautiful horse. And I like that the way that the color kind of comes around the form. I think it would be nice to see maybe a little bit more of that same kind of curving around this form, because the neck looks like it's a little bit flat. like all the lines are kind of just going vertically. I see a little bit more movement, you know, around the eyes and here. So that could just be just kind of curving, or you could even use the mane of this horse, which I imagine it would be kind of coming down over top. That's great. I also like, there's a certain amount of restraint you had with using black. It looks like you've got like a really dark navy blue or something for these eyes, and I think that's fantastic. I think where I would add a little bit more darkness under here, and you could again use that dark blue as opposed to a black, just to kind of darken some of this area in. And then I also suggest, is there something we can do in the background, right? I mean, even, it doesn't even have to be an image. I mean, you could do something like put stripes in there, or it could be a solid color, like red transitioning into blue, or just a blue sky with some cloud. I mean, just thinking something to kind of give it just a little bit more, because the white is just so powerful and kind of strong as a negative shade around here. But otherwise, I think it's fantastic. Yeah, it's just, there's these, I like how this, I don't know what is this kind of thing called? Oh no, the reins, or I don't know, the whatever, but I like how it gets a little bit thinner as it goes up here. Like it almost looks like it's twisting, which is important. And again, I like how the pencil lines are going in a different direction to help describe all of this. I think it looks good. I mean, probably, you know, it feels like this. Oh, I got my camera. I think that camera battery just ran out. So let's put this up here. 1 second here. Okay, a little bit grainier close-up view. So I would probably consider framing a little bit more like that, because we have a little bit of that neck is just kind of a bit redundant, and then we got all that white space, which again is a little redundant. So I would think if you want to do this, you've got this kind of nice portrait of a dog, so maybe thinking of going more into a portrait format as opposed to landscape. That would be my suggestion personally, but I think overall fantastic drawing. And then, so great work. Thanks, Sam, for sending those in. Now we're going to look at Wendy's drawings here. This is cool. This almost looks like, here's another one that you did. So we'll look at this one first. It almost kind of looks like a book cover or something you've created. So we've got these people, Banff. I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, so I spent a lot of time in Banff. And this pier with these canoes, you might want to tie them to the dock so they don't drift away. So I think, I mean, this is great. I like the color in here. I like the, it feels like this is almost like the cover to a presentation or something. You know, it's very poster-like with the title up top here. Maybe it's based on an actual poster for the for Banff. But I want to go to this too, because I think it's, I would imagine it's supposed to be seen this way, right? And this is beautiful. I did a great like epic canoe trip in Algonquin Park a few years ago with my childhood best friend and the best man at my wedding, and so I saw this kind of view a lot. Somebody paddling in front of me and vice versa, but I like how you've defined all these different, these are, you know, the mountains in front of mountains in front of mountains in front of mountains. And this is like a very very graphic way of doing it, very kind of unnatural, like this is not kind of the way that these things would look in, again, doesn't mean that's wrong. What I would say is if you want it to look maybe more realistic, quote unquote, is think about darker lines appear to be closer to us versus lines that are less dark appear to be further away, because it makes it look like there's atmosphere in between. So what I would suggest is, let's say you draw the canoeist really like with this type of dark line, kind of heavy dark line, and then as we go further away here, these lines get less dense, less pressure onto the page, thinner lines, so they'll appear to be further away, so that by the time you get to this line back here, it's almost drawn the same way you've done the clouds, or disappears into the background. That can give us that sense of depth. But having said that, you could continue working in that way, and sort of a technique that the Cubists did, like Picasso and Braque and Dorian. They were all about trying to collapse space and flatten the image. In fact, one could argue that the whole history of art, painting over the past 100 years was all about flattening the picture plane. A whole other conversation. So there's nothing saying because you could outline this whole thing and make it all very dark, but just as it is right now, these shapes, because they're outlined, appear almost to kind of come forward in front of this. So it almost, in a way, could look like we have these mountains are almost like a bridge or a log that she's paddling under, if that makes any sense, right? Like you imagine this is being supported by some beams on the side, she's paddling underneath it. So you just want to kind of be a little bit mindful of that. And again, that's a really interesting trick to try to do when you're making a drawing. So you can play with these kind of conventions. But I think this is fantastic. And what we have here, you can even though the canoe does come to a point, it does make it look like perspective is happening here, right? We've got these, like, kind of the water appears to be sort of receding towards a central point, versus this one here, I think that there's, is not using some of those perspective lessons that we talked about. So, while we're right here, I'm just gonna, just because I love doing this kind of stuff, I'm gonna make a version of your drawing here to kind of bring it all home. Okay, so if I was to do this, let me see, sketchbook over, and let's say I'm going to start here for our sake with these mountains. Alright, so I quickly draw that into the background. I've got this other thing here. Oops, sorry, I'm going to move my sketchbook over this way. And then I might have, let's say this is this lake. Alright, so my horizon line is somewhere probably, in fact, I'm just going to draw it in. It's going to would be somewhere around here. Alright, so we're kind of coming down, and then we have this dock. Let's say, for our sake, we're going to put the vanishing right there. Right, so then we would have something like this, and I guess your dock just goes right off the page here. And, well, technically this dock would be kind of more like this for using the 1-point perspective we talked about last week. I was going to do something a little bit different, but since I didn't teach that, I'm not going to do that. Oh, here. So let's say this other part of the dock, right? And these are all, I'm getting a little bit sloppy because I'm getting hungry. But they would all be kind of receding back to that point, just as this one did here. And then if you've got your canoes in here, what I would do is just kind of quickly define where they go. Right, so this canoe would come up here. All right, so and then, yeah, so then let's just gonna kind of quickly go back. Right, so as things get closer to the front of the picture, right, they're going to get darker. Right, so I think a lot of people are afraid to allow the pencil to get that dark on the page. All right, so then we have, because I think people are like, well, if I make a mistake, it's gonna be so hard to erase. I always think, like, make a commitment to your drawing and put it in there, right? So then we could Does this make sense? Is that because that would kind of help with a little bit of the perspective in there. And then you can see these mountains in the background are kind of faint, just like what you've done too. So you've done a great job, especially on the background. So I'm not going to do that, but I think just that dock is what kind of, I think, needed a little bit of extra love. Okay, so I think I'm going to call it a class here. Thank you everybody for tuning in once more. I know that maybe there's some more comments of some other drawings people have put up. If there are, then I'll address those next class. So try to find some art by artists you like. Try doing a little sketch or two based on a few of those drawings, or try drawing the same drawing 5 times and set a little timer. Say, I'm just going to spend 4 minutes on each drawing, and I'm going to draw the same drawing 4 times in this like 20-30 minute kind of span. And you're going to really see the drawings are going to get better each time, right? Same thing if I just said, go make some banana bread. You know, the first time you do it, there's stuff all over the place, and each time as you get better, you start refining things. And by the 5th time, you're like, well, I'm going to put some walnuts in, I'm going to add some cinnamon. You know, you see what I mean? Like, you just start taking a little bit more liberties and trying to practice, you know, just push yourself in a little bit different direction. Okay, I could go on, and my wife says I talk too much. So, stay safe, everybody. Try to get a little bit of drawing done before I see you on next Tuesday at 4 o'clock Pacific time. Yeah, I don't have to add. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everyone, and we will see you next week.